Nobody knows even why some houses are called haunted.
What would you call this place?
Well, diseased, sick, crazy. Such houses are described in the Bible as lepers. Before that, in Homer's phrase for the underworld, a house of Hades.
Hello everybody, this is Irene from the Paranormal UK radio show, the flagship show on the Paranormal UK radio network. And sadly today I am not with my usual co-host Mark Johnson, as he has got himself into a bit of bother. He's loaded up with a cold. He was hoping to be well enough to do the show today, but he is absolutely terrible, and there is no way he's going to be able to talk on a microphone. So with me today is my other co-host, Philip Kinsella. Now, hello, Philip.
Hello, Irene. How are you?
Oh, I'm all right.
It's great to be on your show. It's fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, what I want to say is Philip has a show with us on Paranormal UK Radio. Sorry, people. Philip has a show with us on the Paranormal UK radio network called Twin Souls. Now, do you want to talk about it, Philip? Do you want to explain a bit about Twin Souls?
Yeah, well, it's all thanks to Irene, yourself, and Mark Johnson. Twin Souls is a radio show that deals with all aspects of the paranormal, especially the UFO phenomenon and psychic phenomena, and it's really very interesting, the people we have on board. So, and Ronnie does the artwork for that as well. So that's something that really does help other researchers and authors like you do, Irene, with going forward with different ideas, that people can play around with and or kind of like utilize. Because we all have different beliefs in different areas. And I think it's interesting when you bring other thoughts to the table and other researchers and authors forward to talk about their experiences and their ideas about what's really going on behind the scenes.
That's so true. And what's good about Twin Souls is the fact that you do it with your brother, Ronnie.
Yes.
So that's Philip and Ronnie Kinsella, and you're both twins, aren't you?
Yeah, we're identical twins. I'm 7 minutes older than Ronnie, and he's an author and artist as well. And we kind of like get the guests together, and we have a great time. It's kind of like we try and be as cool with everything and not so stiff as some people are on their shows. We try and make it relaxed for our guests like you do. So it's just downtime really for the researcher to get a lot off their chest and talk about themselves and their brilliant work.
And both of you boys have been with me now since more or less the beginning.
Yeah.
Since we became a network, you were one of my first shows.
Wow, yeah, and I remember you. Yeah, I remember you asking us to come on board, and we were like, "Oh my lord, you want us to do a radio?" And it's like, "Oh my god!" But it's worked out really fine. So our shows are one a month due to time constraints. So that works out really well for us, and they go out on the podcast and other networks all over the world. So we're really delighted to have that.
Yeah, and we're delighted to have you as a show.
Thank you very much.
Like I say, what would Paranormal UK Radio be without Twin Souls?
Oh, well, the same as. It's nice, isn't it? That's lovely. Brilliant.
Okay, Philip. So today you're going to introduce their guest?
Yes, I am indeed. And his name is Rob Gutro. And he is a medium and paranormal investigator and an author of quite a number of books, most notably Kindred Spirits, How a Spirit Befriended a Medium, Ghosts of England, On a Medium's Vacation, Pets and the Afterlife, How Pets Communicate from the Other Side. And I know there are 2 books on that and many other books. So we've got to, bring our guest on. Hi, Rob. How are you?
Hi, Phil. Doing very well. Thanks for having me on. And thank you, Irene.
Oh, you're welcome, Rob. It's really nice to talk to you again. We had you on talking about your book on pets. And now we're going to kick off with Kindred Souls. Kindred Spirits. Sorry, I'm getting muddled up with Kindred. I'm getting muddled up with that. Twin Souls.
Kindred Spirits. Yeah, that's interesting. That sounds really cool. I mean, Rob, how did you, first of all, can you explain to our listeners a little bit about yourself, first of all, so we get an idea, a rundown about you and your work and your interests?
Why, certainly. I am. I call myself a medium, but as you mentioned, I don't do it for a living. I'm actually a scientist. I'm a meteorologist. So we were talking weather before we came on. My other passion,
Yeah.
and so that's what I do during the day, and I use my scientific background to explain the existence and the behavior of earthbound ghosts and spirits who've crossed over with energy. So it's all about energy in my books. And since I was a kid, I was about 13 years old when I had my first experience. And it was quite startling when my dead grandfather showed up in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
when I was able to talk to my parents about it, my mother confirmed that she had the ability. My grandfather had the ability. So it became less crazy for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there, Rob, because I myself, would you believe, did an experiment after some people had passed over. One of them was a friend of mine, and I walked into a bookshop and I got this book. Well, it actually fell out on the occult section. That made me laugh. Everything's all occult, like it's really dark. And it was called Reunions by Dr. Raymond Moody, and I did one of his mirror scrying experiments, and nothing happened. Only seeing the face of Thomas the Tank Engine when I was doing the experiment. I don't know why that came up, but it was only until I can't remember, a couple of weeks later or a week later that I came home, and through the conservatory glass doors, looking through them, my friend who had passed with cancer, age 20, had turned up. He was staring at me through the glass windows in the way that he had been before he became ill. So I totally understand where you're coming from. So, that is incredible.
Wow, that's quite an experience you had.
Yeah, it was.
What I was going to say, you say that your family were all mediums?
Oh no, just my mom and
Well, so they
dad.
so they understood.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you see, that didn't happen with me. Oh my God. Whenever anything happened with me and I said anything to my mother, it was, your imagination. If anyone's going to see a ghost, Irene, it's me. I was born in a haunted house and I've never seen anything. So you're very, very lucky to have someone that you could talk to as you were growing up.
I was. And what's interesting, though, is my mom was always afraid of the abilities. And so as I grew older, by the time I was around 40, life settled down and I was able to start actually focusing and getting more messages. And as we talked about before, when my puppy passed in 2005, he opened the door for me to communicate with animals on the other side, as well as more people. Then my mother said, I want to hear all about the dead people, but I don't want to talk to them myself.
Oh.
Wow.
Well, I can understand that, because they do they do pop up when you really don't need them popping up sometimes.
They do.
So I can understand that. Can't you, Philip?
Yeah, from Rob's perspective, I was going to ask him about, I understand that you're a scientist, and one of the things that I'm very interested in is discarnate communication and the process of that, and understanding, I'm not an expert, but understanding how the visual and sensory connections occur with regards to those guys on the other side. So as a medium myself, the way that I understand communication is sometimes through visual representation and sensory link. And animals have come through, most notably dogs and cats, more than anything. But, I find sometimes that, if it's a Labrador, which is my favorite dog, one of my twins' favorite species of the dog, the Labrador, I know it because they'll show me an image of our dog. But if it's like a crossbreed, sometimes that's a little bit difficult to come through. So how do you actually, bring this information through? How do you actually feel or sense this? Are you clairvoyant or clairsentient or clairaudient? How does this work for you, Rob?
It works in actually a number of different ways. So I can hear them. I can see them in my mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can actually smell them. I can feel them. And when I go on investigations, sometimes the clarity is so impressive to me about what they look like, is that I'm actually able to sketch out what they look like, and then I've been able to show the homeowner, and they've confirmed every single earthbound ghost that I've encountered. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's one of the things I was going to ask you, whether you could do psychic drawings.
Well, I never looked at it as a psychic drawing, but I guess
It is.
I used to draw superheroes when I was a kid, so that talent came in handy as an adult.
Oh, Ronnie'd love you.
Yeah, he would. Superheroes, here we come. Rob, I find that so interesting, and also the other thing that I wanted to ask you, with regards to your kindred spirits, how a spirit befriended a medium. You talk about earthbound spirits going back there. That really interests me. So in your interpretation of earthbound spirits, what do you mean? Do you mean that they are still locked in the earth sphere and haven't returned home to the other side? Is that what you mean with earthbound spirits?
Yes. So I call actually earthbound entities ghosts. And
Yeah.
I try to differentiate between the two, because I hear people use spirits interchangeably, but I want to make a distinction between earthbounds, which I call ghosts, and then spirits are the ones that I refer to on the other side as the ones that have crossed over. Because I've noticed as a paranormal investigator that the ones that do choose to stay behind are pretty much locked, like you said, locked to a fixed location of their choosing. And what always mystifies me is the length of time it takes for them to stay before they get kind of stuck. I would love to know what that time is, but so spirits.
Sorry, Rob. Fixed location of their choosing. Do you mean that, like, they would like to haunt a special house?
Yes.
Or stay in a special house. I don't like the word haunt, because I don't feel with my ghosts that they're haunting. This is their house. They're not haunting. They're just doing their thing.
So I find that ghosts stay behind for a number of reasons. Well, they may love the place that they lived and they never want to move on, or they may haunt a place like a hospital or a prison, or a place where they died suddenly. One thing that's interesting that I found as a paranormal investigator is that I found that people who are generally pretty religious or religiously conservative are usually the ones that opt to stay behind because they're afraid to cross over.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Because they've had it rammed into them over time about hell and damnation and things like this. Yeah. And if they have done anything naughty in their lifetime, well, they're obviously going to think that's where they're going to.
And who hasn't?
Well, no, I'm an angel, me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got a couple of little horns growing, and a little pointy tail, but I am definitely an angel.
Yeah, bless you. You are indeed, Irene. You are.
Yeah.
So, Rob, can I just ask also? So, in terms of your work and your obviously experimentation and your paranormal investigations, you obviously believe, like we do, that there is obviously another side where souls go to when they're returning home. So do you think that for these souls that are earthbound, which is very, very interesting to try and work out, because most of it's on theoretical application, do you think that they themselves have guides or helpers on the side trying to help them and they can't, and that people then step in from this side to help them? What's your thoughts on that? Because that's something I've always thought about, in terms of how does it work?
I do think that they have guides to try and help them, but I think that those guides may be limited, and I think sometimes those guides will help them by bringing someone like you or Irene or me into a place where they can be heard. Yeah. So we can help cross them over.
Yeah, soul rescue, basically. So your book, Kindred Spirits,
yes.
Rob, tell us a little bit about the book, this new book that you've written. Tell your audience what this is about.
Well, this is a compilation of a number of encounters that I've had with one particular spirit over the last 14 years. And it's all about how I wound up getting to know him over 14 years and befriending him, really, from the other side. It's very unique to me, only because he continues to come to me. So just so you know, he came with my partner.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. When you were, he came with your partner. When your partner arrived in your life, he came with him, or how was his first communication with you? How did he make that very, very first contact?
Well, it came months after my partner and I started dating. So that was back in 2005.
Checking you out, you see.
He was.
Yeah.
So his first appearance was a visible one, which was also unnerving because I had only seen one picture of him and I only knew of his name. So my partner, Tom, is very closed-mouthed about his past. He doesn't like talking about his past.
No, none of us do.
Yeah.
Not to our partners anyway.
So
it's a
Ed
situation that is.
So Ed likes to share things. So I always when you read this book, you'll realize, as I tell people, there are really three people in this relationship because Ed has come along for the ride.
Okay, so you got a threesome.
Yeah, well, I guess so. Yeah.
So Rob, with regards to your Irene, with regards to your this spirit that was connected to your partner, how Irene said, how did he actually get through to you? What was it that he did to get your attention? I know he showed himself visually, but
the initial thing.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Well, the initial thing was the appearance in the rearview mirror of my truck when I was driving with my partner, coming back from Virginia. We'd just gone to visit his grandmother, and I looked in the rearview mirror, and there was Ed, who was the spirit, staring at me. And
sorry, I know I'm interrupting, but I want to get this in my head. Did you recognize him from a photograph at that point, or did you go, "Oh crap"?
Well, I did both. Yeah, I did recognize him because I had only seen one photograph of Ed. So Ed was Tom's former partner. Yeah. Back in the 1990s for 9 years, and Ed passed in 1996, and he. It was always thought that he had taken his own life, but in the book, Ed sent me on a journey, and to meet his father rather, and his brother, that helped prove that he did not take his own life.
Well, that's good.
So that actually brought his dad comfort, and his dad, after the visit with his dad said, "I can finally stop grieving after 15 years."
So he got closure then.
He did. He did.
That's nice. That's
so
nice.
I guess that through that closure, Irene, would you think, Irene, that through that closure for him, that he then connected with Rob and kind of like, we have spirit guides, but they are elected, as I understand, from us through the pre-birthing cycle.
Well, I always think, but I think over a course of a lifetime, your spirit guides change many, many times. If I suddenly decided now that I wanted to play the piano or something, maybe I'll get a spirit guide come through to help me with that.
That makes sense.
I get guided, with the books that I write and one thing or another. Maybe there's an author there that's not a very good author that comes through and helps me, and that's why my books are
don't put yourself down. Don't put yourself down, Irene. You're a brilliant author. Goodness me. So, Rob, so Tom came back, did he? After you saw him in the rearview mirror, I mean, what happened then?
Oh, so actually it's Ed. So Tom is my partner.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, Ed. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Tom.
I've got his
Sorry,
name.
Tom.
Sorry.
That's
Sorry.
all right. Ed is also kind of like a partner. But,
Okay.
The threesome here, threesome.
So the other interesting thing, so I'll tell you about the second encounter, but the interesting thing here is that over the past 14 years, Ed has told me things that I could never possibly know. And then Ed has told me things about Tom that I've never been told before either. So I would bring this to Tom and I would say, I said, so this is why you do this, and this. So I understand why you do the things you do, and he would say, how do you know that? And I said, well, Ed told me. And he says, yeah. So he would say, I don't like you talking to Ed.
Oh, Lord.
Which leads me to the second thing that Ed really came through for. And I always look for really intensely personal things. So Tom and I were walking out of a Barnes & Noble one day, and this was early in our relationship. And Tom said something, and I just looked at him and I said, "You MOT." And he said, "What? What is it? What do you mean MOT?" And I said, "Mean old thing." And he stopped in his tracks and he said, "Why did you say that?" And I said, "Well, I was told to tell you that." And he said, "Who told you that?" And I told him it was Ed. And he said, "Ed used to call me mean old thing all the time."
Wow.
He said, "There's no way you could possibly know that." I'm like, well, I have inside information.
I tell you though, Rob, that's amazing. But as soon as you said MOT, the first thing that went through my head was Ministry of Transport test. That's the MOT, isn't it, for your car? You get an MOT, Philip.
Well,
I did think that. Yeah, but I was quite astounded by the actual the revelation. I mean, what Rob said.
Mean old thing, yeah.
Yeah, mean old thing. It's incredible, isn't it? And obviously for your partner that meant so much because anyone else would never know that. That's something that I wouldn't. I assumed it was something to do with the car,
Yeah, but you can understand Tom's concerns, can't you, without giving out all these little secrets. It's bad. Ex-boyfriend comes on the scene for me, sort of thing, and starts giving out little secrets. But Tom, poor Tom, Ed, oh, you naughty boy, Ed.
So this led on then from that. I mean, so you've had this relationship with Ed in spirit, and you have obviously he's been trying to communicate through to you. To send messages through to Tom. So have any of his messages in any way been kind of like, there to help you in your spiritual journey along the way? I mean, how do you see Ed from your perspective? Do you see him as a guide or as a close friend, or you say like he's part of your group? So how do you see Ed? And is he still around you?
Family.
Yeah. He's very much around me. I see him I really see him as kind of a best friend that lives in another state or another place in the country. Yeah, that's the way I have to look at it because I hear from him when he has something to say. So, as a matter of fact,
I think he'll have plenty to say after tonight's show. Don't you talk to that woman again.
As a matter of fact, he just let me know that he's around this morning. I was I took out some clothes for work today, and I put them on the bed, and when I picked them up, there was a penny underneath, and I thought, what? Where did that come from? That wasn't there before. Well, he loves sending coins. Ed is big on coins. And they're always dated the year he passed. And sure enough, this one was dated 1996. And I thought, where did this come from? But I knew where it came from.
Do you know, I keep finding coins, but I never think to look at the dates.
No, that's something we don't do here, because most of the coins here are like, the pennies are universal. I don't know why they have them anymore, because they're ridiculous. Or 2p's, it sounds very Victorian, Rob, and our end in England. We have the pennies and the 2p's and the 5p's and the 10p's. But that's really astounding, him trying to, he's obviously getting through to you. And I know that sometimes we go through a disbelief or a series of not believing. Did at any point, like when you were down or low, did Ed come in to try and prove to you that he's still around when you have yourself gone through bad times? Has he been there to help you through those difficulties?
He certainly has been. And that's another reason why I really consider him like a best friend in another state, because I can talk to myself aloud, and then I can hear him answering. So, yeah, and he's done that quite a bit. I mean, anytime you're in a relationship with somebody, whether whether you're married or you're not married or whatever, you're always going to have disagreements with them. So
I mean, it's like a spirit guide. I understand. Like, my spirit guide is Wolf Song. So the only way that I was able to clarify that through the signs was not so much as it was more signs from other people. So I kind of like meditated many years ago and said, what's your name? A North American Indian. Well, how ironic is that? And he showed me this image of wolves and a man playing a flute. So I kind of got the idea that he was trying to send me his name through encryption. So Wolf Song. And then the very next day I said to him in meditation, so you've got to prove that to me. And the next day a guy walked up to me, and he was wearing a T-shirt, and underneath was a wolves and a North American Indian playing a flute. So I understand intensely how you then build up this relationship with a discarnate entity. We call them discarnate. Seems a little bit cold, doesn't it? But at the end of the day, I agree with you. Like, I'm sure Irene does. So you sometimes get frustrated and you ask them for help. You're not always going to get the help, I've got to tell you. That doesn't always happen. But it's good to be able to speak to them. And if we're very honest with ourselves, if we're truly honest, I sometimes I'm in the car and I let off some steam sometimes, or I have a problem, I send it out. And, most people say, oh, no, I don't do that. And I think most of us do. I think a lot of people do. Do you do that, Irene?
Do I do? Let off steam?
Let some steam to your guards, in the car or privately with no one around?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have had a few words. Yes. I won't tell you what, but I have given a few words, and most of them are 4 letters, Yeah.
So Rob, your relationship is with Ed. I mean, how has this progressed? So is he linking with you?
Sorry, Philip, but you know something, Rob? I'm jealous of you.
You are?
I would love to have a friend like Ed. I really would. Somebody I could confide in.
Yeah, it really helps, especially because he knows Tom.
Yeah. And I don't want any of my husband's exes, mind you. I don't want any of them, but I wouldn't mind a friend like him.
Well, he will say, he'll say to me that he experienced the same thing with Tom, and he'll say, don't get upset over it. Don't. It's just the way he is. Just move on. So he'll give me advice like that, and I'll hear that. And I'll think, oh, okay. Well, if
Yeah, but it's like a lot of these things, though, isn't it? Philip, you must agree with this. You put out that thought, you put out that request that you want an answer to something or other, and maybe you won't get that answer straight away, but in the next few days, somehow it comes to you, like a brainwave or something like that. Sure. The answer's there.
Yeah, and it comes through sometimes in the most weirdest of ways. I mean, we're all special, we're all unique, every one of us. And one time I was thinking about our work and where it's going, and I came back, and we have a gravel drive to the front of the property, and they're on the gravel drive, and I make sure the gravel drive has got no weeds on, nothing on. I'm a little bit of a snob like that. I like it all nice and tidy. And there was a piece of paper when I got out of the car. There was a piece of something on the gravel, and I went down to pick it up, and I still have it. And it's a cutout. It's a cutout of a dove. And it was so unusual. So I took that in and I photographed it. I put it on Facebook a very long time ago. So I do agree that, you know, we do get our signs. And as Irene quite rightfully says, not always the way that we get them, that we expect them to come, or the way that we imagined, or sometimes some time passes. But what's interesting with Ed is that, so he's obviously, do you feel that he has unfinished business and that's why he's connecting with you? Or do you just see him like a friend who's decided to, or elected to, be a part of your life on another level of vibration?
I look at it as the latter, actually. He wants to be part of my life, but he also wants to be still part of Tom's life. And he's definitely around both of us, but I'm the one that talks to him.
Yeah. So initially, when this all started, Rob, with Ed starting to link with you, when you'd met your partner Tom, I mean, did you or he at that time ever think that he would come through to you this way? I mean, was there any talk of Ed being psychic or anything like this at all?
No, as a matter of fact, I didn't learn about Ed until I think a couple of months after we were dating. And I think in the first year, probably about a year after, almost a year we were together, we went to see a psychic in Ellicott City, Maryland. And there were two of them, actually, that were there. And one psychic took Tom in a room, and the other one took me in the room. And that the psychic that spoke to Tom said, you had a partner that passed away, and that partner is telling you that Rob is your soulmate. And Tom walked out of there, and we compared notes, and he was just floored. And I said, well, that's interesting, because the psychic that I was talking to said that your partner is very much around me.
Wow.
The other thing too is that he went through another psychic, a psychic, to give messages to Tom, and he told Tom that by the end of November that year that we would be moving in together. This was 2 years after we were together.
Yeah.
And Tom said, absolutely not. We're not going to do that. Well, it was Tom's choice, and he didn't even realize what date it was or whatever. And sure enough, he said, I think it's time that we stop going back and forth between houses. We need to move in together. And I said, do you remember Ed telling the psychic that?
Ed obviously knows ahead of time what's going on. I'm sure he must bring about the situation as well at times. But what I feel when you talk about Ed is family.
Yes.
It's like a big family connection with the three of you, your dogs. It's just like you're all one family.
And that's exactly how I feel too. I mean, Ed really is kind of like a brother to me. That's the way I look at him. And he was also instrumental in helping comfort me upon the passing of one of my dogs. Because I asked him to be there, and he proved to me very much so that he was there when we made the choice to let our dog Sprite transition.
Yeah.
So.
So he's been a real support, hasn't he, Ed? I mean, it would be interesting, for you perhaps. I mean, you probably haven't done this. I'm not sure, but have you tried also the voice box, the ghost box, as they call it? Because I was very dubious about the ghost box, and we had utilized some really amazing connections with spirits from the other side. but not people that we knew, but other people that had been involved in the Iraq War and so on and so forth. So have you tried the ghost box with Ed to see if it'd come through to speak verbally at all?
Gosh, no, I have not.
So it's just an idea. I don't know why I've got it in my head, but don't go out and spend $150 on a ghost box, because my one costs about £110, which is probably $150 in your money. I'm not sure how the currency.
You actually use the ghost box?
Yeah, I've used it. Yeah, but it's
and you
sometimes
found that it is good, because
sometimes I mean.
Mark and I thought the opposite.
Oh, yeah, it depends. I think we did it in a group of a lot of people, so I think if it's one person or two people, sometimes the connection is not as strong. And I think if you have a circle of more antennae, conscious antennae, as I call them, then there's a bigger signal, because, and it doesn't always work. But I think, you'll know when to use these things. I know there's a lady in America, she lost her son, and she used to put a tape recorder into a tin and ask her son questions and put it in the tin, and they would record much clearer. So there are different ways. You find your own ways. But it's just a thought, Rob?
Yeah, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think Rob's getting quite good communication now, aren't you?
Yeah. And it's like, so where has this progressed, Rob? I mean, where is this led now? I mean, the signs he was giving you to know, first of all, that he was around, and then he's giving you advice and telling you stuff about Tom. So where is this relationship led now? What do you feel his connection, you say as a friend, but sometimes I think on a spiritual journey, which you are on, by the way, because you've written no end of books about, this type of thing. So obviously he's helping you on a spiritual level also, isn't he?
He is, yes. He's helping me get more in tune with energy of people who passed and all earthbound ghosts. Yeah. But he's pretty amazing, and he really does act like a living friend. As I was concluding this book this summer, as I was finishing writing, I took the dogs out. We have 4 dogs, by the way, Philip.
Oh, lovely. What are they? What are they dogs?
One's a Weimaraner, and we have 2 dachshunds and a dachshund Chihuahua mix.
Oh.
And we've been working in animal rescue for Weimaraners and dachshunds for the last 10 years, doing fostering and transporting and all kinds of things.
It's wonderful.
So, and foster failing, which means we adopted them.
Lovely.
So I was one day, I walk the dogs 2 or 3 times a day. And one day I was walking the dogs, I think it was in the evening. And this was just 4, maybe 5 weeks ago. It was just before I concluded the book. And I heard Ed tell me, don't go that way. And I thought, well, why not? I'm just going to go this. It's just around the block. It's a short trip. And he said, don't go that way. And I thought, okay. He said, if you go that way, a car is going to come speeding around the corner and somebody will be killed. And I thought,
oh gosh.
Yeah. So I thought, Ed, are you serious? And right when I questioned him for the 3rd time, that's when I actually felt the grip of fingers on my arm. I was wearing a T-shirt. I felt the grip of cold fingers on my bicep. And I thought, okay, you've convinced me. I'm turning around and going the other way. And that kind of a premonition from spirit happened to me before. So I have learned to listen, although I was questioning Ed 3 times. I don't know why. But the same thing happened after my puppy Buzz passed back in 2005. After he passed, I adopted Dolly, the Weimaraner, another Weimaraner. Yeah. And Buzz, and I was taking Dolly and my roommate's dog out for a walk as I used to take Buzz and the roommate's dog. Same general walk. And Buzz told me, don't go that way. And I thought, okay. And he really made me feel total fear. So I didn't go directly out into the main street. Instead, I took the dogs into a forested area.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that Dolly, who was a puppy at the time, her leash opened in the forest. For no reason whatsoever.
She didn't run, did she?
No, she did not run, but had it been on the street, she also would have been killed exactly where Buzz was killed.
Oh, my gosh.
So I listened.
Because he was run over, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, his leash opened on the main street.
Wow, and it's almost as if, I think through development as well. I mean, I know that, we're Irene's a medium, you're a medium, Rob, and we're all mediums, and we develop and learn differently. But one of the things that I really had a tough time when I was younger was death. I couldn't seem to accept that we just lived and died. It made no sense to me whatsoever. And then, of course, when my brother and I, my twin and I were 10, we'd lost our grandfather from my stepfather's side. Now, he was a very generous, very kind, big Irishman, and that was a shock. So no one really talks about it. No one really discusses it. It's almost like it's back in the 80s especially, it was like brushed under the carpet.
Well, I think the first experience of death over in this country is when you lose your first pet.
Yeah, that's awful as well. I mean, pets are just as close as humans, and granted, if I say this, there are some animals are more human, to be honest with you. But I think that's quite that can affect anyone quite severely, and I think also wouldn't you agree, Irene, that what he's doing here is also bringing a lot of comfort as well as therapy to those people who've not only lost their pets, but also now going into areas of saying it's okay to grieve for a loved one because, hey, they can come through and they can connect with you.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. Very true.
So, Rob, where's this taking you? I mean, although you've had these communications from Ed from Spirit, it's really fascinating. Has he explained anything to you about, what it's like over there? I mean, we all have an idea, and some of us had an experience, but has he described to you what it's like?
No, he has not. And I've asked other spirits what it's like my mom and dad, and they tell me that it's nothing like anything we can imagine.
Exactly.
They said that, and as a scientist, I look at it as just all energy. If you think about solar rays streaming through the universe, or gamma rays, or X-rays, or any kind of energy just moving at the speed of light. That's the way I look at it. And I have heard some mediums say, everybody has a job, and I can see them in a field, and or relaxing, and doing this and that. And I think that we, as mediums, some mediums will say that because as humans, we couldn't even imagine what the other side is like. So we have to paint a picture that shows relaxation and peace and so forth, because we feel the peace from the other side. That's just my interpretation.
I think, to be honest with you, I had an experience many years ago, and the other side was very shocking. I mean, I think because we're limited in our flow of awareness or conscious awareness within this biological form, and once it's separated from this limited processing or flowing of information, the consciousness, the energy, as you call it, becomes one mind back. All the memories return, and the only way I could describe it is like a pulling. It was almost as if it was more real than here, and the other thing is that that you felt fulfilled. It was a very bizarre experience. I mean, I didn't go into the core experience because I was nearly drowned in South Africa, so when this experience happened, I wasn't concerned with the body under the water. I was more fascinated with what I was seeing, and there was also a memory of being there before. So I call it like the awakening. Unfortunate, well, I don't know if it's fortunately or unfortunately, Irene and Rob, I came back. So it's like I don't know. I don't think I was under there too long. Probably about 5-6 minutes, maybe around that time.
Wow.
But it was but to me,
That's
it
a long
heralded.
time to be under the water.
Yeah, it was, because I remembered seeing myself above and this bald-headed man diving in. And then the next thing I realized was I was seeing myself from a distance as this man was pushing the water out of my back. My brother was there. And I didn't feel any
So
connection
you were out
to the
of
body.
body sort of thing.
Yeah, but as a kid, as a 7-year-old, it kind of like, it didn't really, it was no big deal to me. But now, after all these years, I believe that we're all connected, we're all linked, we're all important, and that you, Rob, and I know Irene, and she's psychic as well. She's done a lot of investigations in the paranormal. She's very respected for that, and I think that all of us have our connections. So I think you're right, Rob, when you say that some people just say they're sitting in a garden, because when I'm relaying information from a loved one from the other side, they're not talking about where they are. They're more interested in getting the message across of, the trauma or the illness or however they passed, and that they're okay, and that, this is fine. And I also think of it like, you're right. I've always examined it in the extent of like signals to a TV set. You've got the hardware, you've got the software. So like consciousness works like the software that works through the hardware. When the hardware's damaged or it's broken or it no longer works, the signal just returns back to source. So most people say, do you have a body? And I'm like, well, does a signal to your TV set have a body? You press a remote and it pulls a signal through.
Exactly.
Well, it has form, it has substance, it's not all random. So this is the way I see it. And I feel very much with all psychic mediums or, paranormal investigators, that it is very interesting to, sometimes cross that line. But I totally agree with you. I don't think they're in a field or they're sitting down reading a book. It feels to me like there's still ongoing process of, creation or development, and that they, the time as we know it stops. There is no time, which is the big contradiction, because we're locked in a physical time sphere. So that is very interesting as well. So with regards to your book, Kindred Spirits, I mean, what was the reasoning behind writing this book? Because like Irene, she's an author, she's written some amazing books. There's always a reason behind writing a book. What was it that fueled you to write this book?
It was Ed's prodding.
Right,
really.
Okay, so I knew there was a prodding somewhere. It's like, who is it? Did he want this for Tom, or did he want this for you? Or I feel it's more like for the people as well.
It is. So what wound up happening, so I've written, as you mentioned, 6 books. So
Yeah.
in 5 of these books, Ed has always there's a short story about Ed coming through in all other 5 books. And so I compiled some of those stories with other things. Because whenever I would be doing an interview or I'd be talking to somebody, I would always be talking about Ed. And people are like, well, who is he? So I thought, you know what, Ed has a great story here. And this is really a good example for all people that once our loved ones pass on, they are still very much around us. And they even to the point where you can feel like they're a best friend to you. So I had to tell that story, not only his story, but the story for all other people. And as people read this, they will also understand through the things that Ed did how spirits communicate, spirits of their loved ones.
Yeah.
So you feel that Ed is like a spirit guide to you, yes? Do you have any connections, or do you feel any other spirit guides around you at the time?
I do know that Buzz, my wine runner, has become like a spirit guide because he guides me to communicate with other animals. And there's another spirit guide that I have. His name is Jacob. He's an older man, and I don't know anything about his past. But
Well, I don't know anything about my spirit guide. I mean, apparently, and this is the truth of God. I don't lie. I shot him in the back in the Red River, so this is my penance in this life.
Oh, you little devil, you!
And I always joke with Ronnie, saying that dare I say it, but if Irene was over there, she'd be kicking our backside. So I guess everyone has a sense of humor, and those guys have a sense of humor as well. So Irene, you understand about all about spirit guides, Irene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you've got a few of them.
So
I'm like Rob, but I do know I've got Willow, my dog. I know she's around me.
Yes, she sure is.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
Just picking up on what you said about the sense of humor thing. Ed has really I learned that Ed has kind of a dry sense of humor, and I confirmed that with Tom. So Ed likes to play.
I wonder what you make of my sense of humor.
Oh, it's wonderful, Irene. Don't change.
He likes to play little games sometimes.
Yeah. I'm like that.
But and conversely, he can also be very serious. So, like when I went to visit his dad in 2011 for the first time, he gave me all these disconnected signs, symbols, and pictures that helped prove that he was with his entire family in the 2 weeks before I visited. Plus, he also revealed that he did not commit suicide, as I mentioned in the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's in the book too.
Yeah. So him giving you these symbols of 2 weeks before you actually visited, you were able to relate those things to the family, which proved to the family that Ed was still around.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that is brilliant. That is good. That is very good.
Amazing.
So and this is when Ed was just talking to me in little pieces, and so our communications have evolved over time, just like talking to getting to know a friend from not knowing them at all to the acquaintance stage to a friend and then to a best friend. His communications have really expanded. So in 2011, he would just give me little snippets of things. So he would, so some of the things that helped prove that he was with his family were the word jingle, a rowboat that was a kayak, a blue book that played a very important part in his father's life. Just bizarre, disconnected things.
Things that you wouldn't really understand, but they would.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, and I would say I sat with Tom because every other day before we went down to visit his dad, I would say, well, Ed came through to me this morning again. He gave me another weird thing. Do you understand it? And Tom didn't understand any of these things that I was giving him. I'm like, well, they have to mean something. So when we visited his dad, we were able to piece together almost every single thing. And then 2 weeks after we came back from the trip, there were still two things that were unresolved. One was a blue book, and the other one was a sign about a duke or a duchess. And his dad wrote a letter and resolved both of those things, proving that he was with his dad and his family in the 2 weeks. So
it is amazing.
It's a fascinating story.
Yeah. I think you both you and Tom have been very lucky to know it.
I think so too. I think so. And there's some other kind of quirky oddities. I mean, Ed's birthday is 2 days before mine.
Is it?
And and I just found out, and here's something I think you get a kick out of. It shows a sense of humor, and it's not in the book because I left it out.
I like his sense of humor.
I found out that Ed had the same waist that I have, a 30-inch waist, and I only found that out because he stole all my underwear and he put them in the laundry.
Oh, the little knicker thief!
And what's funny is that I asked. Tom called me on Saturday. He was doing the laundry, and he says, "Why in the world are all your underwear in the laundry basket?" And I'm talking like 25 pair.
Oh no!
And he said, "We just did laundry last week. I did all of them." And I said, I don't know. I was looking for some this morning, and then I heard Ed laughing in my ear.
I like this boy. I really do. He's so much like me.
He has a goofy
there
side.
must be some kind of soul, from a soul perspective. It appears to me that, I know that we have, and I believe sincerely that we have past lives. I mean, there's no point in just having one physical life with one memory of one existence, and that's it. We go home or, whatever. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if you have some type of past life links. I mean, that is one of the things that I find is truly remarkable, and something that cannot be proven unless, of course, you regress. But it appears to me that, it's wonderful. It reminds me of that film Ghost. I mean, the Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg that played the Ghost, and the Patrick Swayze, the amazing Patrick Swayze, and the other famous people in there. But it seems to me like the relationship that Ed is having with you is kind of like he's okay for you to be with Tom, and it's really beautiful because it's like he's trying to move you forward. And I think it's wonderful because sometimes some people say, well, what made me do this or what made me do that? And these books that you've written, obviously, from my perspective, the way I see it or feel it with you is that Tom is trying to get you to become more evolved spiritually. And I'm not saying about wearing a robe and going out in some sandals. I'm just saying that
Ed, you mean? Ed.
Yeah, Ed, sorry, yeah. Ed, he's trying to, and I think Tom is very much a part of this because on a soul level, all of you may have connected in the past, and that Ed is trying to move you forward. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting. This is the first time I think I've ever heard of, as someone who's had such an intimate relationship with a ghost. And one that's a continuous, relationship, because more times than not, those on the other side come in and then they go out. It's like, that's it. Unless it's a very close loved one, but he's kind of friend that you didn't know. So this is very interesting. Are you going to write another book on this?
Oh, well, after I published it, he's come to me 3 more times already. So
yeah, I get the feeling like this isn't the end, man. There's more to come.
It's all the time. No, he's great. I talk to him quite a bit. So
I was going to say, how often do you talk to him?
Pretty often.
What Philip was saying, maybe that you were all together in a previous life or something like that. That's maybe why I'm getting this family thing. You were saying something about they've known each other before.
Yeah, Philip? I totally agree with that.
Philip?
Yeah, I think personally what I feel, what I pick up with is very much a very strong bonding relationship, and not because Rob has just said that, but it's a feeling like, and I also get this feeling with you, Rob, that within your life, I feel very comfortable. I feel very comforted. I feel you're a very relaxed guy, and you're very calm. And I don't know why I see these downtown apartments. I mean, with huge books and books everywhere, and it's really kind of neat or lovely. But have you wanted to go out like in the country, or you want to go away from the town or the city life?
Well, yeah, we're contemplating retirement in 5 years.
Well, that's what I pick up. And I feel that it's kind of like comfortable. I feel that is a good thing for you guys, because I really get a lovely feeling with that. But it's also a comfortable feeling I get. And, this is where you'll be able to create more of a platform for your spirit communication. And your partner Tom, how does he feel with regards to your books and also your connection with Ed? I mean, he's okay with this, or I assume he's okay with all of this.
When Ed's not giving away some secrets.
That's true, Irene. Absolutely. No, so Tom, at first when in 2010 or 2009, when things started picking up for me, Tom, he would shake his head and roll his eyes and say, I don't believe you, whatever. So we would go into historic mansions, and then I would tell him what I got, and he would send me to go talk to the house historian, who would confirm everything that I got. So then he started believing me. And in 2012, when we went to England,
I was going to say, we've got to get on to the English trip that you had. You and Tom came to England, yes?
Yes, we did, in 2012 and 2013.
Yes, we've got to talk about this.
So Tom, when we got into Westminster Abbey, something amazing happened, because he had abilities. He developed abilities right there in Westminster Abbey, where they awakened. Yeah,
wow.
He started sensing people who were dead and earthbound ghosts. And when we were walking through, he said to me that he would sense that there was a man there, he smelled a rotting corpse.
Oh.
And in the meantime, I just get headaches when I'm in the presence of a ghost or spirit. And I told him, I said, yeah, there's a man there, and he's in his 40s, and he's standing right, in that corner. So he would confirm everything that I got, and I would confirm everything he got. But it happened. It got triggered in Westminster Abbey. Yeah.
Were these spirits that he was feeling in the Abbey, were they just ordinary people, or were they some of our kings and queens, maybe?
They could have been kings and queens. I think
a lot of them are buried there. Yeah,
I think one of them was in fact a king. But the oddest thing that happened was when we were both looking at the tomb of Anne of Cleves.
Yeah.
One of Henry VIII's wives, and we were standing 20 feet apart. And I wrote about this in my book, Ghosts of England on a Medium's Vacation. We're 20 feet apart, and at the same exact time, somebody pulled our hair on the opposite sides. Like somebody had a 20-foot-long reach and pulled our hair at the same time. And we turned to each other, and we said that. And we couldn't believe it.
Wow. Well, don't worry, they weren't going to take your heads off, don't worry.
Well, I was going to say, she lost her head, didn't she? They moved her hair out of the way.
So that's incredible. So what made you come to England, Rob? What was it that propelled you to come here? Was it because you wanted to see these old places?
No, it was actually Tom. Since Tom was young, he's always had an attraction to England. And he fell in love with the Tudor history, so he reads all kinds of Tudor history. And he asked me if I wanted to go, and I said, yeah, of course. So he planned the trip, and we visited almost every Tudor site we could come up with, or he could come up with. I have to be honest, I knew zero about Tudor history, so that's what made it even more
brilliant,
exciting. Absolutely
brilliant history, the Tudors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I learned by talking to some of them right then and there.
Direct. Yeah, and obviously Ed came over as well. He came as well.
He did. Ed did come. We, at first he tossed us a coin, and as soon as Tom found that coin, I said, that's Ed. Because I can sense that Ed's walking with us. I think we were in Bath, England, and
that's not far from me. That's. Do you remember I told you about my experience at Bristol Airport trying to get to the airport? I'm sure I told you.
You probably did, but I can't recall it.
About my mystery. Oh well, never mind. This I think ties in with your experience in Bath to a certain degree.
I know.
You had an experience. You had an experience in Bath where you got lost.
That was right? On the way. Yeah, that was coming back from Bath to London.
Yeah.
So our GPS went haywire.
Yeah, they have a real ability in affecting electrical items, and that's one of the things sometimes that that they really love doing. And I think also that a build-up of energy what I was going to ask you, Rob, that's very interesting. You say energy. You say, energy. I see it as like consciousness. So in your interpretation, in your mindset, the way that you see things, do you believe that this energy or consciousness still retains its personality once it passes over? Because this is a big question that a lot of people ask me. They say, am I still the person that I was when I was here? And I'm like, well, I'm sure you are, because the guys that come through seem to be the same. But what's your perspective on that?
Absolutely. So my perspective is that when our physical body dies, our memories, our personality, and knowledge from this life, coupled with the energy that is within us, our physical energies, and then we decide to stay earthbound somewhere as a ghost, or we cross over as a spirit. Mm-hmm. So memories, personality, and knowledge combined with energy is what I basically call a soul, and every living thing has a soul.
Yeah.
So if you're a good person in this life, you're a good person in the other life. If you're a jerk in this life, you're a jerk in death.
Well, this is it. If you come back, or somebody, if you're a jerk in this life and you come back to try and prove that you're still around, and you come back as a really nice person, whoever you're trying to prove it to is going to say, that's not him.
No, that's not him.
I will tell you though, Rob, and I've got to boast a little bit because I'm ever so proud about it. I think, I've brought a few famous people through before, but this really topped the billing. Many years ago, I was doing a group reading around some houses, and I come to this guy, and he's sitting there with this other lady, and I'm saying to him, I've got this male here who he's placed a ring on his car. He's got his car in a garage, and he's turned the exhaust on, but he's got a photograph of his wife, and he's got a ring on the chair, and he's got a note with him. And I said, I kept seeing someone of importance, like he's titled, or there's something like this with him. Well, this guy's sitting there and he's looking at me, and I only asked for yes or no, to verify the information. And I said, yeah, there's something linked with some kind of like high title or something. And you know who it was? It was the Queen's cousin, and he'd committed suicide. And
Which one?
Luton who? I can't remember his name. You know, the one that took his own life? The guy that I read for was the man who dealt a lot with, can't remember his name now, the Duke of something, or the Lord Duke or something. And he didn't turn up at a meeting, and he went and found his body. Luton who? The one that owns, Luton or something, Luton who or something, one of the Queen's cousins committed suicide many, many years ago. So anyway, and that was like really weird. And another time I was doing a group readings, and there was a titled lady. I can't remember her name, lady, whatever.
I'm titled.
Yeah, sure.
I am titled.
Are you?
Yes. Go on.
Go on, Baroness or lady or
lady.
Oh wow, blimey! Well, that is amazing. But it's interesting.
Something I don't talk about though.
Oh wow! So it happens, And this lady said to me, she said, "Will I still be a lady when I cross over?" And she'd had so much to drink, Irene, I couldn't believe it. And I thought, oh no, I'm not going down that road. Will I still be a lady when I cross over? And of course, she'd had more spirits in her than what was coming through, because it was this big do at this big posh mansion place. I didn't know where it was. I was just asked to go there. So titles and stuff. I mean, it's really nice and honourable, because my brother and I are very honourable of people and very respectful of people. So they're two of the funny ones that I've done with people. So in terms of history and whatnot, it's all very important. But I was going to ask you also, with regards to your work with animals, because the way that I see it when they communicate is the same as how the humans communicate, or we call them humans, is the imagery and sensations, which is the best way to contact people from the other side. But do you get animals like here that, can you communicate with the animals? Do they communicate with you in this life as well, like physically in this life? Can you read them here as well?
No, I can't. I can certainly read my dogs, but yeah. I can't read other dogs from afar. So I say,
are they attracted to you though, Rob?
Oh yeah, dogs. Yeah, they're always attracted to me.
I think they pick up on people. They know who the good people are, aren't they? They're wonderful. They're beautiful, beautiful beings. And my brother and I have a little bit of a comical saying. We say, yeah, we say, smelly bums, smelly breath, but they love you to death. But they'll give you the world, and it's like, you know, as I said, our favorite is the Labrador, and there's one that comes into Sainsbury's here, and he's a guide dog. Oh, he's so cute, but you know, they cannot get rid of that natural instinct for food, because when he's walking along, it's so cute. You see his nose picking up and smelling the hot food counters, you know. It's so cute, it's lovely, like, oh, he's so cute. So with regards to going back to Ed now, and linking with your book Kindred Spirits, How a Spirit Befriended a Medium, you know, with regards to you now wanting, or probably Ed wanting you to write more books, have you got anything else lined up? I mean, within your investigations. So come on, you are a medium. You said you're more of a paranormal investigator, but I know that you're a medium. So where do you think this is leading you ultimately, Rob?
Well, I actually have 3 books already together. I just have to edit them. Pets in the Afterlife 3, Ghosts and Spirits 2, and I have Ghosts of Ireland and Scotland on a medium's vacation.
Oh, no, that's my relatives.
Yeah, yes.
So
that's very interesting. I mean, the thing is, though, the fairy folk, and there's a lot to be said about that within folklore, I believe, with regards to the ancient scripts of, like, you know, the little folk, and tying that in with a lot of the paranormal activity. But I think sometimes there's a shutdown from a system that's trying to disable our emotional responses in linking with empathy and love. Because, you know, the way I see it, Rob and Irene, is that years ago, you know, any mention of mediums when I was a kid, because our maternal grandmother was psychic, and we had some experiences with her, some incredible experiences. But when it was on TV, because we had Doris Stokes here, the British medium.
I went to see her.
Oh, bless her. And and you know, the press and the medium, you know, they had a really horrible way of dealing with mediums. And of course, I was naive to assume that I believed in UFOs, of course, but the mediums I didn't. But then, of course, I had a big slap in the face and a wake-up call in the late 90s, where things started to happen. So when was your wake-up call, Rob? When did it all really kick off for you? I mean, you're saying that your family's psychic, but when did it kick off for you?
It really kicked off when Buzz passed in 2005 from that tragic accident.
Right.
Yeah, he was so strong and adamant about making sure that I knew that he was still there. He was doing everything he could to comfort me. He sent me musical signs. He sent me physical signs. He moved things. I heard him bark. I visibly saw him and followed him into another room, and he disappeared. There are so many ways that he came through to me. And then when my dad passed 3 years later in 2008, he was there for my dad. He at the cemetery when they were doing the last services there, and they were putting the casket away. I saw a light to my right. I saw a light on the hill in the cemetery. This was in the Boston area, and in August it's even overcast and gray in Boston sometimes. So, but there was a bright light to the right of me, and I turned to my sister-in-law who was sitting next to me, and I said, "Oh my God, do you see the sun breaking through those clouds?" And she said, "What are you talking about? There's no sun." Yeah. So, and I looked again, and sure enough, it was like a doorway of light. It was like it was like the end of a tunnel. And in the tunnel were every one of my relatives that had passed, my dad's parents, my mom's parents, and there were 3 dogs sitting in the front. My 2 family dogs when I was a kid, and Buzz. And they were all sitting in the light. And I watched my dad walk into that light. And
You know,
I'll never forget it.
oh, bless you.
You actually saw that, but your sister, she couldn't see anything.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know, I'll tell you something, Rob, that's very interesting. And Irene, you know, we all understand about the psychic phenomenon. This is very incredible because you know, Irene, we don't suffer fools gladly. We go in for the, you know, the real investigations. But
I go for the throat. I don't know about you.
But you know, I see their
I don't
lights, and
suffer
it's like
from
when I'm sitting with clients, I can see like these really bright white. Sometimes they're different colors. Now I am colorblind, but I know my basic colors like white or silver or blue and I've often wondered, like when I see them around a client, I say to them first of all, before I start reading for you, I may see a light, and if I see a light, I report it. And they say to me, who is that? And I said, well, I don't know. It could be their mom, it could be their dad, it could be their brother, sister, uncle, aunt. But what is interesting, Rob, is the lights, the colors of light, the colors of the lights. And that's kind of like we're assuming here. I know some medium put it in a book saying what it was, and I'm thinking, oh, no. We just don't know yet. But the colors, because you're a scientist and, you know, light carries information.
Well, you mean like the vividness?
Yeah, the colors of the lights, they're so bright and they're so clean. And the colors, though, because they come in, and that might mean, Rob, that they are cut on different levels of vibration or dimensional frequencies. What's your feeling on that? Obviously, you've said about the lights, and sometimes they're big and sometimes they're small. And I think these are the lights we see when we're ready to cross over. I hope that I'm not ready to cross over yet. I'm not ready to cross over just yet. You know, when I see them, I get a little worried, and I'm thinking, is it my time? But I always ask people, and it's good to get some feedback. What's your idea on that? The different colors of the lights that are seen.
Well, what's interesting to me is that I've only seen, whenever we've crossed anybody over, it's always been pretty much white or off-white. But I have been able to see auras of different colors around people. So they're projecting different energies to me, or emotional energies.
Okay.
So
negative people as well. God, just keep me away from them. I just can't deal with them. You can feel it.
All right, I'll leave you then.
Yeah, no, you're not. You're not negative.
I am very negative.
No, you're not.
Oh, yes, I am.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
You're a kind lass. You're a kind lady. So, so it's kind of like really weird because the lights for me, you know, we're explorers, all of us, yourself, Irene, myself, and many other investigators and people who'll be listening to the program are finding great comfort through the work that you're doing, not only through the beautiful pets, you know, and I always have to go, oh, because they are so cute, and humans as well. But it's really amazing the work that you're doing. But as a scientist, how, you know, because sometimes someone will say, oh, you know, he's a scientist. And it's quite shocking to discover that because you're a scientist, but you've also got this amazing ability in communicating with, or they are communicating with you from another side of life. So do you ever get some people that are kind of like, you know, friends or associates that kind of like accept that, or do you find it difficult sometimes?
Yeah, there were skeptics certainly that I've run into, and but one thing I don't do is I don't tell other scientists that I have this ability, because you know they would have an awkward
maybe
time.
that's a good thing. Yeah.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, okay.
I think some scientists,
you know, I did make the mistake. I will tell you. Oh, sure. Yeah, and you know, some scientists are paranormal investigators that use a lot of the equipment.
Yeah, sorry, you were going to say, Rob, before I interrupted, I'm sorry.
No, so I've had to learn the hard way a couple of times about giving messages and telling people things about my ability that I shouldn't.
I hate the dogs.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's thundering outside.
It's a beautiful sound. Don't worry.
Well, thank you. They like to be heard. So I made the mistake of telling somebody that I worked with that her father had come through to me and gave her a couple of signs, and I didn't really kind of get a feel for her before. Well, she used it to try and get me fired.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she was just not a nice.
No, that's awful.
Yeah, well, you learn the hard way.
That's one of your negative ones.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it's true what you're saying. I kept it quiet. I really don't talk a lot about anything like that to any of my friends or anything like that because they don't understand. They don't understand.
I find that too. I find, most of my family are quite understanding and accepting of what I do, what me and my brother do, and the work that we do. But there are some that do not, and you kind of like feel edgy because they're like, "Yeah, you're different. You're strange." And I'm like, "Well, I'm cool. I love that. I love strange. I hang out with a lot of. In fact, I say to people, I like hanging out with the dead, and they look at me. And also, I've got to say I will make you laugh here, Irene and Rob. I've got to tell you this. I've got to please tell. I know this is your show, Rob, but please let me tell you this. When I was first developing with mediumship, as people call it, I don't like that word. I think interpreter, because we're just interpreting information coming from a higher vibrational frequency.
I hate that word.
Yeah, what medium? Anyway, so I'm gone to this church service. And in my early days, I was booked up to the help of doing church services all around the place. And I walked into this one church service. And shall I tell you something, Rob? Do you want to know, Irene? Shall I tell you something?
Oh, absolutely. Don't leave us hanging.
You want to hear this? You want to hear this? There was more dead in the audience than there was coming through from the other side. All the people in the audience looked like they were just about to drop a drop. And when I was reading for them, there was no response. And I come out there and I'm thinking, well, that was weird. And it's like, because they're just so used to spirit communication, it's like just a day out. So you live and learn. That was years ago when I was developing. So, and I always joke, I said, come on, there's got to be more life in here than that. And people get it the wrong way round. I say to people that we're actually dead and that they're living on the other side because we're all going through a process of this walkthrough, or this what I call a passage through eternity. So it's interesting. So I'm really sorry to hear about that, Rob. That's really cruel of that person doing that to you. That's really nasty.
Yeah, well, it turns out that she's pretty much disliked by everybody that ever met her.
Oh, right.
And she's moved on. She took another position.
Yeah.
But I truly believe in karma.
So do I. I usually create it.
I believe that the energies that flow through the universe want a balance, and whatever you put out comes back to you. I truly believe that. So here's kind of a funny story. I was driving to work one day, and this woman was tailgating me on this 2-lane road, one way, one direction, one way the other direction.
Yeah.
And she couldn't get past me, and she just tailgated me. She was probably within no more than a foot away from my truck. Finally, we got to a traffic light where she could turn off. She turned off. She went around me, crossing the double line, and turned off and sped off. But for probably about 10 minutes, she was really driving me crazy. Well, a minute later, I turned a corner, and there she was, pulled over by a police officer.
Oh,
good. There you go.
That's karma right there.
Oh, I believe in that as well, because I like Irene, and I think a lot of us do. I don't hate people, but sometimes there have been some people who have been really, really awful and nasty. And yeah, we're all human. Sometimes you wish them dead. I mean, not literally in that sense.
I don't know.
And I say to them, they say, when you cross over, do you have to pay for what you do? And I said, well, my understanding is if you're a really evil person, if you're a really controlling person or a murderer or whatever, then you are drawn to probably a mindset of other souls, like-minded souls. My brother and I know this event that happened many years ago with me, and it used to get me really upset thinking about it. But do you ever have these episodes where And I will tell you, there was a famous author, British author, who went through the same things. And I was so delighted to read on a psychic level that he went through them. Like, you could be driving a car or watching TV, something, anything that appears random at the time. And suddenly that moment seems to trigger a memory that comes together all in one. Like you've got the answers, you know that there's more to this, you become bigger, you're connected. And then all of a sudden it dissipates and you come back into the normal life here. But I read in the book of C.S. Lewis, his biographer, that he called them moments of joy. Now, isn't that amazing? Isn't that incredible to know that he couldn't explain what he was experiencing, and you know, his experiences were like mine and probably many other people.
Wow, that is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are certainly moments of clarity that I think we all get, and when spirit decides to share something with us.
Yeah, it's more of an inward connection or a soul connection that's really quite amazing. Maybe I'm just a freak.
No, you're well connected.
I love that line on the I love that line on the Independence Day when the scientist in Area 51 comes up with his line. I think it was Brett Spinner, wasn't it? Spiner or something from Star Trek, and he looks like a mad scientist with his long hair in his coat, and he goes up to the president and says, "As you can see, I don't get out much." I love that because it's crazy.
I think we're all crazy to a certain degree.
I agree with that.
So Rob, now going forward with regards to Ed and his connection with you, which is really incredible, and of course the shows have been about your books, Kindred Spirits, How a Spirit Befriended a Medium, as well as Ghost of England, On a Medium's Vacation, and Pets in the Afterlife.
You're getting some plugs here now, Rob.
Yeah, you see that? Thank you so much.
So I want to do, and I think it's important for all of us as authors because sometimes it's good to be able to look at a variety of different works. I think, sometimes we follow one author and it's like you want some change sometimes to see what someone else feels like. And I think everything that we pull in to the halls of theoretical and also, research in terms of like spirit world communication and experiences are all very important. And I think that with regards to your books, and with regards to Ed, and with regards to Tom, who was connected to Ed, what's really interesting, and I will tend to agree with Irene in many levels, that you are a family, and I get that because I keep getting like a link back to my past, to the family when we were all together. So it definitely seems like it's a family soul connection or a link there.
It definitely feels that way. In this book, and I used one of the stories from The Ghost of England on a Medium's Vacation. In this book, Ed fulfilled a dream or a request of mine that I've had since I started talking to him back in 2005, and that was I always wanted to meet him in person. And of course I never knew him. I never knew him at all when he was alive, and he passed in 96. But I've always said to him in conversation, Ed, I would do anything to meet you in person. And I know I have to wait till I get to the other side, but I just feel so sad about that. And when we got lost in England,
in Bath,
outside of Bath, he sent somebody that looks exactly as he would have looked had he lived to be in his 40s.
I heard this story. Now, can I tell this story?
Sure.
Yeah.
Because this does link to Bristol, right? Apparently you got lost. You couldn't find the motorway. And you started to get worried about it because you had to get back to London. And a truck pulled up. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, actually, the GPS took us off the highway and put us in some remote, rural, crazy area.
Yeah, the backlands of Bath.
Yeah.
Anyway, a truck pulled up, and the man that was driving the truck was the identical image to Ed.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Oh my God!
But just with gray hair, though.
Yeah. Now, Bath and Bristol. Bristol, where I had my experience, is 13 miles from Bath. It's a very, very powerful area. I know, I can feel it. I know it's a powerful area around there. Why, I don't know. But you've got Bath is beautiful. You've got the Roman baths. You've got, all the Roman stuff and all that.
All that water energy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Bristol's 13 miles away, and my cousin died in Scotland. I had to get to the airport to get a flight 6 o'clock in the morning from Bristol Airport. So it now got to about 4 o'clock. We should be at the airport booking in. It was 4 o'clock. We were lost in the outbacks of Bristol.
Oh my
Just
gosh.
down the road for Bath. We were going down country lanes, driving down a country lane. I was panicking. There was no lights. There was nothing. It was just darkness. This was on a January morning, freezing cold. It was just pitch darkness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, by a hedge, there was a man. And I said to my husband, pull over, quick, pull over, ask him the way to the airport, ask him the way. So he pulled over. He ran down the window. The man came across to the window. And the man, asked the man, could you tell us the way to get to the airport? We're lost. We need to get there to get a plane. Because I wanted to be at the funeral of my cousin, right? The man said, I can't tell you, he said, but I can show you. And he climbed in the back seat before we could even say anything. He climbed in the back seat.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so there's this old man sitting in the back seat, hardly saying a word except to say, take this way, go through this village, go here, go there. That's about all he was saying. And I'm sitting there, keep looking round at him. And I just felt that there was something different about him. Anyway, we get to the airport. As we're going to the short stay car park, because we were going up to Glasgow and back in one day, the short stay car park, we were heading to a short stay car park. He said, you can let me out of here. And I said, well, how are you going to get back to where you were? That was miles away. How are you going to get back there? Don't worry, he said, I'll get back there. And I looked at my husband, and he looked at me, and when we both looked back at the man, he'd gone, disappeared. Vanished.
Wow.
There was nowhere he could have gone without us seeing him going off in the distance. He wasn't around. He was gone.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. It doesn't stop there. This nagged me for a week. I didn't feel right about this. And the following weekend, I said to my husband, tell me what you saw. He described the man. I described the man. We both saw totally different men.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even the clothes were a different colour. Everything about this man was a different description to the one my husband gave me.
Wow, that's incredible.
Gosh.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And that is just down the road from Bath, 13 miles.
Wow.
So if there's going to be anything happening in that area that is like this, I can understand your friend Ed coming through in that particular area.
So who do you think the dead man was?
I've got no idea. But I put it out on Facebook at the time. People said, oh, he must have been a spirit guide. He must have been someone that your cousin sent from Scotland to get you to the airport so that you would make his funeral.
Well, yeah, I believe.
No, I've got no idea.
Well, I will tell you, Rob and Irene, that, and this was documented in one of my books, the first one, Reaching for the Divine, was that in my early days of clairvoyance, I did a function at the Bedford Spiritualist Church. That had been on a Sunday. On the Monday, I went into work, and I was having a real downer. I don't know what it was. I think maybe because I wasn't knowing where I was going with my life or where my direction was. This is before I wrote any books or anything. And, my brother and I have always wanted to write novels, children's and science fiction. Didn't think I'd be writing spiritual books and books on UFOs. So anyway, I leave work on Monday in the afternoon and I want to go to the shops. I'm walking up to these old shops in Bedford. And I see this guy, and there's not many people around, and this guy is leaning against a lamppost, and he's wearing a motorcycle outfit with boots, and he's very tall, and for a male, he's very striking. He didn't have his helmet with him, and he didn't have a backpack, so he's leaning against this post, and he's looking at me as though he knows me. So I get a little bit uncomfortable, and I walk into a shop. I don't know why I go in this shop, and I'm just looking around, and I come out, and I have to get past him to cross this small road to get down an alleyway. So he kind of like acknowledges me, and I acknowledge him, but that's the courteous thing to do. And I'm walking down this alleyway, and suddenly I can hear these pounding boots behind me. And it's when this hand touches me and pulls me around, and it's the guy, and he's like tall and, striking. And he's saying, "Are you Philip Kinsella?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "You're the medium?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I was there at the the service that you took last night." And I'm thinking, no, you weren't there, because there were only about 40 people. And listen to me, mate, if you had been there, you would have stood out like a sore thumb. And his message to me was that I had to be strong, that he was saying things that shocked me. He physically took my hand. Now, I'm 6 foot, yeah? So this guy's taller than I am. And he's built like a bronzed god, I suppose you would call. Women would go gaga if they'd seen him. So his hand was physical and solid when I shook his hand. And I turned round, and then he kind of like started walking away. And I swung back round again to say something. He'd gone. So I remember going back to work and telling everyone who thought I was crazy. And I'm convinced that he was an angel. And he did say to me that you will see me one more time. And this is why they will come sometimes in the strangest of ways and sometimes in the most appealing of ways, because they're there to get your attention. If they stand out. And the other thing as well, the little telltale signs was the fact that if you're a motorcyclist, you would always carry your helmet with you and you'll have a backpack. And there was none of these. So I'm like, well, where are they? Where have you left them? It's not customary now to leave your motorcycle helmet over your bike because it'll get nicked.
That's true. Very true. Oh, I never get one like that.
Well, I mean, I told everyone, and it's like, at that point then I knew this was serious business, and I knew that there was someone looking out for me, like a guardian angel. I mean, I have a spirit guide, sure, but this was very different. This was very intense. And I was so shocked. And I remembered even then people like at work didn't seem interested. And I think, oh, God, the robot syndrome again, the controlled consciousness, all this type of thing. I just thought I couldn't done with it. But it's never left me. It's never, ever left me. Like you, Rob, with your experiences, and you, Irene, with yours, these things are telling you that they're real experiences, and they happen in a way that is so odd and out of place in order for you to remember it.
That's true. Very true. Yeah, so getting back to Ed, is he spontaneous, or do you have to sit down and concentrate? Does he come through willy-nilly sort of thing?
Yeah, he can. Yeah, he's pretty spontaneous. Like,
is he?
yeah, like when I told you I was walking the dogs and he kept telling me not to go that way. Something, bad would happen. He just comes when he needs to tell me something.
just when he wants to have a word.
When he wants to have a word, he'll pull me aside. Yep.
Yeah.
But that must bring great comfort to you, though, Rob, shouldn't it? Surely now, because of the experiences that you've had throughout your life and your beloved pets, and also the people that you loved and you've lost. This must, give you great comfort to know that you're not only being helped, but you're also helping other people through Ed. That's
true. Yeah, I do get comfort from that, and Ed continues to tell me that there are so many different ways that spirit can come to people, and usually when I'm giving a presentation, I sense my dad there, because my dad used to do a lot of public speaking, and Ed will always be sitting in the audience. So he's kind of like a cheerleader for me. Because Tom usually stays home with the dogs. So whenever I travel, and I'm going to be doing some traveling, I like to go to animal rescues, and I talk about how pets communicate from the other side, and I do that as fundraisers.
So don't you find that heartbreaking though?
I do, but it turns out to be really healing for the people that attend. So, and every time I go, I usually get messages for some people in the audience. and sometimes I'm compelled to give certain people in the audience like a stuffed animal. I usually bring a stuffed animal or something with me that I'm driven to bring something.
Yeah, I think that's important. And whatever, some people are looking for, dead, straightforward evidence. But sometimes that evidence can come in one of two ways, sometimes in a comical way, and sometimes in a way that will completely throw them. And it's only when you walk away from a situation that things become clearer or they make more sense. I think when you're caught in the moment, when you're having a sign or a communication, it seems to make more sense to you or whomever when a little bit of time has passed so that you can, filter it all through. So, it's interesting that, Ed has continuously connected with you and Tom and giving you advice and kind of like keeping you on the straight and narrow with regards to your future going forward. Because let's face it, sometimes through a lot of the things that we go through in life can be very challenging, and people don't always talk about how they're thinking and feeling. And I think it's really nice that you've got this connection with Ed. I sometimes I don't know if my spirit guide is around half the time. It's like this is the kind of feeling I get. So that's really interesting. Do you know how old was Ed when he passed over? Sorry, was he young, like in his late 20s, going on to 30s?
He was 36. He just turned 36.
I just feel like he looked younger than what he was.
I think he did look younger than he was. I mean, I just learned this last month that he was about 5'10", and he's about pretty much the same weight that I am. And the same, like I said, he has the same waist because he took my own weight. So we're kind of similar in build. It's just that he's a little taller than I am. But there was another time. There was another instance where we actually met another old friend of his that Tom knew, and we met this guy for lunch. Of course, I didn't know who he was, and we met him for lunch. And we were sitting there, and I sensed that Ed came over and sat in the empty chair. And so Ed, while Tom and their mutual friend were talking back and forth, I was actually listening to Ed. So I know that they were wondering, what was wrong with me because it looked like I wasn't paying attention. But I was really paying attention to Ed, and Ed told me that he really wanted to convince them that was there. He did that by, and I explained.
Oh, hold on, Tom, I can't hear you.
Neither can
Tom?
I.
No, Tom, are you there? Sorry, Tom, we lost the transmission. Can you just repeat that? Sorry, we both Irene and me lost you for a moment. You disappeared.
Oh. So, sure. So
you got to the point where Ed told you that he really wanted to tell you or tell Tom and this other person.
Yeah, the other guy. That he was there, and so he did that by conveying the type of car that he had at the time that he knew both of them. And I didn't. I don't know what type of car Ed had. So they thought about it, and then they realized that he did have that type of car, same color that I told him. And they laughed about it because Ed used to do landscaping, and he had to try and cram a mower into this hatchback. So he wanted them to laugh.
And that was also giving them evidence as well.
Yeah, it gave him evidence, but he said that
I can imagine him trying to cram a mower into
it. So his main point in all of that was that he did not want them to keep talking about his funeral. He wanted them to remember funny things about his life. And that's a lesson for everybody, really. Don't dwell on when somebody passes. Dwell on the fun things that you remember, the happy times. So that's just one of Ed's many messages in the book.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that's such a wonderful thing, and certainly very different. I mean, most of the books that you read are about spirit guides and angels and about, the connection of your loved ones. But certainly when you have a relationship with a person who's crossed over, is very interesting. And although most people that don't understand take the mickey out of it, when you start having contact, I mean, Irene and I know, and Ronald knows, and many other people that are involved know about the reality of discarnate communication. But isn't it amazing and delicious when it becomes more real, or corporate as it were, with regards to sensations and feelings as well? I think that's something that is remarkable, and a testament, obviously, your book, Kindred Spirits, to Ed also, and to the connection that you have with him. Certainly a beautiful piece of work. And I feel that, another book, well, you said you got more in the making, is obviously a nice offering. Do you have plans for other books as well? I mean, you seem to be a prophetic author. Do you have plans for other books as well, Ed?
Yeah, he's got 2 more as well as this one.
But is he wanting to, I know he's got a few more he's said about, but is he wanting to continuing as an author?
I think that Ed probably will, he will give me certainly enough for another book, as a way to continually show that spirits grow with us, and they actually help us grow, and they're always there for us, even if we can't see them, hear them, feel them, smell them. They're there. So I don't think Ed's life story is not over. He's been gone since '96. What's that? 33 years.
Good Lord, that time goes so quick, and yet they have no time on the other side, as I said to you, and
right.
Irene, it's a complete contradiction, to our understanding of how things operate on the other side. We call it the other side, or the quantum realm, the higher dimensional frequencies, conscious awareness. And I still go back to that point that makes people laugh when they say, do you have a body? And I explain to them, well, the signal to your TV set, when you pull a program through, does that have a body? And they sit there looking at me, excuse me, like...
That's a good way of putting it, actually.
Yeah, but it's true. It's real true. This is what I've written about. It's like, well, think about that. And it's kind of like they look at you and they're thinking, yes, I kind of get it. But I do understand from their perspective, because let's face it, we live in a world and we're run by a system that, let's be honest, is not understanding of this, or not wanting to promote this. And the media outlets and the media machine, they have always poo-pooed or brought down the sensational and most interesting proof that there is life after death, consciousness that continues beyond this material plane of existence. The same with the UFO subject. So, I think it's very brave what you're doing, Rob, with regards to your work. And I think you're a very brave man for everything that you do.
Well, I think we all are. So one thing I wanted to tie in with the science, if you would like.
Can I just apologize for the noise coming from the background here, please? This is not me. It's Gertrude's in the room. Okay.
That's lovely.
Company is a very nice thing.
The noises she's making is rather rude.
That's okay. So, and that could lead me to another story for you, but
yeah. Okay, right. The scientific part.
The scientific part. We've talked about energy and so forth, and I just think that science is going to eventually catch up to the paranormal, and then it will be normal. So one of the things that I can explain scientifically as a meteorologist is why we experience cold spots when we're in the presence of a ghost, an earthbound ghost, or a spirit who's crossed over. Like the cold feeling that I mentioned before, where Ed put his fingers on my bicep to hold me from walking down the street. So the reason we feel cold spots in the presence of those is that because they're beings of energy, they use heat, light, water, and electricity as physical energies. They also use negative emotional energies, earthbound ghosts, meaning fear, anxiety, depression, and anger, while spirits use faith, hope, and love. Those are all things that power the individual ghosts or spirits. So in order for a ghost or spirit to manifest, they need energy.
Yeah.
So what they do is they use the energy of the motion of molecules of air in order to manifest. So by what that means is that fast-moving molecules of air are warm air.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we've got a lot of very fast-moving molecules of air here in the summertime. When you slow them down and you take that energy out of them, you get cold. Slow-moving molecules of air are cold. So they take that energy of motion to manifest and give us a sign. And that's why you feel a cold spot whenever you're right next to a ghost or a spirit.
That's interesting. And it's almost very interesting to speculate about physical manifestation because, I mean, the time that it happened with me, there was no communication. It's more visual. That must take up an enormous amount of energy, mustn't it?
It does. In fact, I also liken that to shadow figures, because my opinion of shadow figures is that these entities don't have enough energy to become fully visible in color, so they can only appear as a shadow figure.
So this is sometimes also why you get the grey lady. It's the different shades.
Mm-hmm. I see.
So they need energy in order to manifest completely and totally in full color. And when they don't have enough of it, they just an outline or a shadow.
Yeah.
God, that's I mean, as a scientist, I didn't think of it that way. I mean, I must admit, I'm very honest with everything. It's fascinating about the molecules and, them taking that out. That's very interesting.
See what happens when you talk to a geek?
Well, you'll find me me and my twin brother in a mental institute in 10 years' time. Don't worry about it. With all that we're involved in, it's like, real crazy stuff. But I love it, and I love dealing with very positive and alternative thinking people, which is very refreshing to the dead that I have to deal with normally at work on a daily basis.
Me too. So I've tried to make these books as affordable as possible for the folks that want to read.
I've noticed, yeah. How much?
So, like the Kindred Spirits book is, I think it's £5.62 on Amazon. Because to me it's important that people teach themselves how spirits communicate, so that they can see the signs and they can see how often that their loved ones are around them.
Yeah,
and that's why I wrote these books for people or pets. That
is wonderful, and we've got about 7 or 8 minutes left. And what I wanted to say also, Rob, with regards to your work, as a kid growing up, did you ever think that you would be doing the work that you're doing today? Did that ever cross your mind?
You wanted to be a meteorologist.
No, actually, I wanted to be a comic book artist.
You did?
I did. I wanted to write and draw comic books because I used to do that as a kid. And I still read them today. I still love my Superman and my Flash and all that. But yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And then, then I grew up in the Boston area, and Boston has weather very much like England. So I was inspired to know more about the weather by the hurricanes that hit us and the blizzards we got. And so then I went the meteorologist route.
Wow, that's incredible. And I do see, Rob, yourself having a comfortable life. As I said, I do feel that everything, or I get the feeling that everything is kind of like working in your direction, and it feels very peaceful. It feels like, and the way that you talk certainly informs me that you're peaceful within yourself. You seem happy within yourself, which is very important, within our journey.
Well, I am an optimist. And I will tell you that by the time when I finally hit 40, I finally was able to settle down and achieve some kind of a peace. So, and I have a great family. Tom, Ed, and our 4 dogs. We'll get you asked for.
See, he said it. He's got a great family. He said family. Exactly what I've been saying all along.
Yeah. So do you know what I would, I have no right to say anything, Bob, but I would, seriously consider more experimentations, unless, of course, you're happy with the communication that you're getting from Ed from the other side. But it might be wise sometimes, maybe, I don't know, whenever you feel like you've got some time in your hands to do a few experiments with voice, voice link. I'm not saying it's going to work, because it can sometimes be a little bit difficult, but certainly when you use a device and you tune into it, you begin to be able to link in with the device yourself, because it's the mediator. You are the mediator. People think it's the machine that's doing it, but really it's their wave energy, conscious energy, wave energy, and your wave energy just interlinking with the device. As it's just record or going around, sweeping around, oscillating, and sometimes you have to have another piece of equipment to enhance the sound quality from the actual ghost box, because sometimes when it sweeps round within its frequencies, it's like this feeling, this sound, and but when you've got a definite voice, it's really quite amazing when it happens. Sometimes it can be mechanical, and sometimes it can have a character or personality behind the voice. So that may be something that you would look at later on when you've got a little bit more time on your hands.
Have you ever thought of using a voice recorder or anything when you're communicating with him? You pick up EVP or anything like that, or AVP, audible voice phenomena. What would you do if you actually heard his voice, not in your head, but through your ears, like you're hearing mine? How would you feel?
It would be great. We do have a number of folks on our investigative team that have those types of equipment, and you're right. Maybe I never thought to ask to borrow it. The only time I heard his voice, if you will, was when the Royal Mail truck driver came out and said that he would help me, and I thought he went from having a Southern U.S. accent to having a British accent.
He did. Wow,
that's incredible.
And sadly, Tom was not actually. Did Tom actually hear him? Or
Didn't
was
hear
he
him.
Sitting in the car?
He was sitting in the car, but he saw him, and he was...
Because he may have recognized that accent.
Yeah, he was... No, actually, Tom, just by seeing what the gentleman looked like, Tom was totally in shock when I got back in the car. He said, I can't believe that looks exactly like Ed. And we talked about that for probably, I don't know, all the way home, 9 hours flight.
Wow, that's incredible.
Well, sorry, Philip, but you did ask to see him, and you saw him.
Yep, he's a good guy. He came through.
Yeah, he came through for you, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're coming up to the end then.
We are indeed, Irene. We're coming up to the end.
Okay, so let's close this off. Where can your books be found, Rob? Kindred Spirit, mainly, because that's the latest one, isn't it?
Yes.
And the one we've talked about most tonight.
They can be found on amazon.co.uk.
Yes. So all the Amazons then?
Yeah, all the Amazons, yep.
Mm-hmm.
They are all available there. And they're in paperback and Kindle.
Yeah.
So, and the Kindle are usually under £3. So...
That's nice. That's good.
That's because I'm cheap and easy.
Yeah, that's what people say about me too. Cheap and easy, that girl.
You can go with that where you want. But anyway.
Well, it's been an honor to speak to you, and very, very wonderful and very warm interview, Rob and Irene. I think, you come across as a very sincere and very intelligent and, very humbling human stroke spiritual being. And it's been an honor to speak to you and to link with you. And so that's really something. So I've learned a few things tonight. We're always learning something new, and certainly have things to think about within our own lives and our own thoughts about things. But certainly it has been an experience, and it's kind of like left a kind of like an impression on me. And I don't claim like I'm picking up anything psychically or anything. I don't do that with people. I'm not. I don't get cheap with people. I love that line. Don't get cheap on me, but it's kind of like a warm feeling that I get. So thank you very much. It's fantastic.
Okay, then. All right. So we're coming up to the end now, and you've also got a blog, haven't you?
I do. They can go to robgutro.com or petspirits.com.
Yeah, okay.
It all comes to the same place.
So you can read Rob's blog on those two links, and I'll be putting the links on our pages anyway on Facebook. And don't go away, boys. Will you please stay there after the show for a few minutes?
Sure.
Okay. This is it, folks. The end of the show. And as Mark would say, where can you find us, Irene? You can find us everywhere. Okay? Bye.
Bye. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm going to stop recording.